experienced over these past few days a number of individuals that are public figures who have left the planet. So I'm grateful to be alive. And even, we can call it last night or this morning, there was another nightclub bombing. 39 people lost their lives. So I'm just so grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for whatever this year has to bring that is for my good. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for our teaching because I know that if I place myself in the position of the high watch, beginning to look at what's going on from a place of spiritual consciousness, then I may be able to speak a word that takes care of how I will be in a situation. And that perhaps it's not for me and it may not affect me. As I was driving on this morning, I became so aware of that as I was listening to the news. I couldn't help it. I just started praying for divine protection around the people that I know, around my family, my church family, everybody I could think of that I know. God's love, God's grace, God's divine protection around them. And that brought me to understanding this love thing that I have for my family is a value that's really important to me. And I heard myself saying, oh God, in spite of who I may be upset with, in spite of when my brother ticks me off and I want to withhold a part of myself from him, in spite of that kind of activity, that dynamic that can go on between sisters and brothers and cousins, family. Tell me about it. In spite of that, I love him. I love them. Every last one. I love them. And I want to see good for them. I don't want to see harm. So that's a value in my life. So how do I live that value? Oh, I know what I'm going to do. He called me last night, earlier than I was ready to receive calls, because I was still in the throes in the midst of a whole lot of stuff, so I didn't get a chance to speak with him. And I'll call him later today so that we can have and I'll tell him, this is good. I'll tell him, we're starting a new tradition. Instead of having an end-of-year talk, we're having a beginning of the new year talk where we can set the course for what life is going to be like for us and the family. He is the oldest member now in my family. So I'm making him take on the responsibility of being the patriarch. What can I say? I'm going to tell him, oh, no. You're not going to call me to ask me what to do. You're going to call me and tell me, this is what I'm planning to do. What do you think? And I'll be willing to make that contribution. But once again, what I'm talking about is a value. It's a value of love that I have for him. It's a value that I have for all of my family. Dr. Ken Gordon, who is our community spiritual leader, is responsible for us expressing this idea around values for today. He says a value is an important and lasting belief or ideal that encapsulates what an individual or member of a culture holds to be good and desirable. Individual values influence our behavior and attitude. Therefore, a value serves a basis for expression in all situations. What about that? What about that? In the inspirational reading, Susan read about the Christian tradition, the Christian religion, and how it sees values. In fact, what was there was Ernest Holmes' synthesis and interpretation of that. And when we look into the Bible, we find that Jesus articulated the Beatitudes: love thy neighbor, do good. All of those wonderful values, those things that are there, those ideas are being expressed, how we are to be with one another. Now, I know we look at that and say, oh, that's just a spiritual thing, a story from way back. Yeah, it is. But I believe what people have experienced over years and eons of having looked at these teachings from the Bible, that many of those things work. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Now, a lot of us will say, oh, wow, that's contradictory. Because we see people kill and we see people steal. But we teach that there's a law of cause and effect. We also call that karma. And even though it has the appearance that perhaps something gets by, there's not a recompense right here and now. There is a recompense that does happen. All of the time you don't see it. Once again, I want to go back to the parallel, to the example of the family. We can look at how parents treat their children and see how the behavior of the parent can be incorporated into the consciousness and the thinking and the actions of the child, and that child passes that same thing on to their children. Until there's one day, there's a child that stands up and said, I don't want to do that. That kind of life is crazy to me. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do something different. And they do. They do. So we can change values that are happening in our life. But let's talk about value-based spiritual living. What does that look like in the everydayness of life? Let's take a work situation. I'm actually working with several Toastmasters clubs, helping them to develop their clubs and expand and grow, be sustainable. And it was incumbent upon me to come up with what we will call shared values. What are some things that we both believe in, that we feel that we can live with in this relationship? And I want to share you 4 that we are agreed upon. Number 1, speak truth. Now you say, oh, Reverend Carolyn, are you sure that when you're given an evaluation, you're always going to be truthful? Yes, I'm going to be truthful, and I'm going to be tactful, and I'm going to speak with wisdom. Because I want to keep the people. But people really want to know the truth. And being diplomatic is not a bad thing to do. We learn how to speak to one another. Do we want to preserve that relationship? Number 2, we want to be mindful of relationships. How are we with one another? How are we with new people who come into our environment? Do we greet them? Do we make them feel respected? Do we make them feel welcome? Do we make them feel honored such that they want to come back and be a part of us? So relationships are very important. The next one is behavior. Behavior says a whole lot, but really key to behavior is we practice what we teach. We do what we say we're going to do. And we will do the right thing at the right time. And this is the thing that I love happened to this particular value that we agreed upon. We will do the right thing, even if it means going back to change a rule or policy that we have previously established. It means that we embrace diversity and inclusivity. And then the last one is learning. We embrace not only personal learning, but our professional learning, pursuing those goals and things that we want to achieve. Because the Toastmasters program itself is an education program, learning to be effective communicators and learning leadership. And you know what? When you're able to finally communicate whatever it is you want to say, people listen. They will listen. People will listen. And the more people listen, the more they can trust what you hear. The more you're able to express what you're feeling, the more people get to know you. Right? So those are 4 values that are working very well in a work environment. Most of us are on jobs or working with companies where we have already established certain core values: integrity, respect, service, and excellence. In our environment here, service is important, respect is important, integrity is important, excellence is important, and we try to continue to elevate that, but we don't have to limit ourselves to just that. We can go beyond. So I believe what we want to do is, as we look at ourselves, look at what is it that I believe that I consider to be a value in my life. What is it that I believe? Can you really identify? I also ask you to look at whether or not you have a belief that you say is a value, but you really don't practice it. You know, it's like, oh, when somebody asks me, I throw that one out. But the truth is, you really don't practice it. So I'm asking you to be honest and let's move that one over here. That's something that you like. That's not a value that you're practicing. All right? And then those that you know are true for you, you're practicing them and you're doing your best to live them. Do that. Now, what else would you like to have as a value? I have some old, long-standing ones that are pillars in my life. Pillars, and they aren't going anywhere. Loyalty and commitment. And there.
Number 1.
Number one. Number 1. Like pillars of life, of living. I'm committed and I'm loyal to it. One that I love to let go of is, when do you let go? When do you let go? And then I can hear Spirit saying, why would you let go of something that is really working very well, a value that's working very well? Here's a secret. The values that we have running through our bodies, through our consciousness, through our minds, through the things that we're doing, they're not just for us personally. They're also for the people that experience that energy, that goodness running through you. Where would I be if it were not for the Spirit catching me before I slipped? Said David. If it had not been for the hand of the Lord, I would have slipped and fallen. So, when I think of my being committed to that which is placed here for me to do, I'm very mindful of the fact that, it's not just for me. I'm here for God to do what God's will is to be done through me for whomever comes into the environment. Watch out. Watch out. Because I'm holding on to you there. I've heard this beautiful statement that if you love a thing, be willing to let it go. And if it's for you, it will come back. Watch out. I'm not going to try to hold on to anything. I'm just going to let that good value of spirit do whatever its perfect work is to be done. And when it's time for it to be changed, then let that change come about very naturally, where that's just the right thing to be done at the time, right? So if there's a new value that you would really like to cultivate in your life, I believe it's incumbent upon us to begin to practice that and to meditate around that. Ernest Holmes said, a true estimate of real values cannot be built on the shifting sands of time alone. In the long run, the merciful obtain mercy. In the long run, we shall reap as we have sown. So, is there real value that you would like to cultivate? If you look over in the book of Galatians, I believe it's in the Bible, Galatians 5, you find various spiritual gifts that are there. I also see them as values: patience, long-suffering, prosperity, peace, joy, poise. All of those beautiful things are there. Those are values that we have in our life. Would you like to cultivate one? I hear people tell us all the time, oh, you don't have to cultivate peace. Peace is already there. Well, if you don't know that it's running through you and that it's alive and well, what will you find yourself doing? Being rather erratic and chaotic and upset about a whole lot of stuff when you don't really need to be. Example, and I come from my own experience of life. My dear mother, beloved, departed, bless her name. My mother was worrier, and she would worry about stuff that was not hers to worry about. She would worry about things that were none of her business, but she was a worrier. And because she was always in this place of worry, not always, but when she was going down that path, when she was in that place of worry, it was upsetting to the household. And there was not peace in the household because she was worried about something over yonder that had nothing to do with her. So cultivating peace was something that we had to learn to do. Mother's in a worry spot, let us go over here. So that we could be at peace. And I guarantee you, when Mother noticed that we were not there watching that drama or participating in the drama, guess what was happening in the household? Peace was moving in on her because she was concerned, why aren't they paying attention? Why aren't they looking? But we were over there doing our thing in a peaceful way and not saying, oh, Mother, calm down. You know, we weren't getting involved in that. So what I'm suggesting to you is that there are other values that we hold near and dear to us in life that we can cultivate. What about patience? How would you like to cultivate patience? When all is going helter-skelter, can you be patient? When you want to see things happen right now, can you be patient? When you declare, I'm looking for a miracle and I want my miracle right now, can you be patient to let the miracle show up? Can you? Can you be patient when we have done a spiritual mind treatment and we have spoken the word of life and truth around your particular issue, and we have declared that we know that we are in the kingdom of God, that the kingdom of God is spirit and it is life-giving, that you and I are one in this, and that we accept and we affirm that which God has said is true for us. God has said, you are abundant. I am abundant. Yes, God, I affirm that. Now I know Emma Curtis Hopkins loves to do denials and affirmation, but right now, in this moment and the way I'm feeling, it's like, no, I'm not even bringing up the denial. I'm saying, God, I agree with you that I am abundant right now, and I appreciate every bit of it that's coming toward me right now. And then, oh God, give me patience. So what it does to us, it causes us, when we declare that we have these values, it helps us to move into that place of the I am. God said, I am that I am. I am peace. I am patience. I am health. I am wholeness. And we reply, yes, I am that. And the Spirit says it to us within us. I am whole. Yes, I am. You may say, well, what about, oh, I got this cold. Oh, no. God says, God doesn't have cold. No, sorry. That's a human condition. Let's come back to the place of spirit. I am whole. Now, it's amazing, and most of us know this, that there are times when we're really just not feeling well. But we can have an awareness of spirit, a consciousness of health and wholeness coming into us, and we perk up. We perk up. And we only go back to feeling that cold or that lethargy when we remember, oh, I'm supposed to be sick today. We've had that. Now, I'm not talking about some of these really horrendous long-term things. I'm talking about how we can use our mind at times to make ourselves feel less well than we should. But what we're doing, we're saying to ourselves, I want to feel poorly today, and Spirit says, okay, we're feeling poorly. That's the only thing that's going on there. That's the only thing. So, I want to encourage you to say, I am well. And Spirit say, yes, we are well. And move forward in that fashion. So for the balance of this year, we will be talking about various levels of understanding of what it means to have value-based living running through our lives. We'll turn it upside down. Look at it from various angles. Not only will you hear my voice, you will hear Reverend Allen, you will hear Reverend G, we'll hear from you. You will share. I will be asking many of you to share your thoughts, because we're here to help one another, and we can learn from one another in that. So, I just ask you right now to just go within for a moment, because we're bringing this part of the service to a close. We give grateful thanks in this day, recognizing